Okay, on example 5, it asks you to identify the domain and range and tell if it's a function. Now this will be much easier after we cover section 6, because what you're going to learn is how to picture these graphs, and if you can picture the graph, it's easier to tell if it's a function. One thing I want you to know though is, like on part A, when you have a y and an x and nothing is squared, this is just going to be the graph of a line, you guys. So you should be able to recognize an equation of a line. Anytime you have a line, the domain and the range are negative infinity to positive infinity, and that is going to be a function. Now on part B, when you have a square root, okay, a square root graph will look something like that, okay, it's half a parabola. Now what I want you to be able to do though is to tell me domain especially, okay. Domain on this one, to solve it, you would do this. The smallest thing you can have underneath the radical is going to be 0. So when you go to set this up, what you're going to do is you're going to set it up so that you know 2x minus 1 has to be greater than or equal to 0. And then you solve for x. So if you move your 1 to the other side, you get 2x is greater than or equal to 1, divide by 2, and x has to be greater than or equal to 1/2. You always take whatever's underneath the radical and you set it greater than or equal to 0. Now, this can be written in function, or excuse me, in interval notation as 1/2 comma infinity. We have a bracket at the 1/2 because it has an equal to here. It can equal 1/2, so that gives us the bracket. And then it's greater than, so it goes to positive infinity. Now part C, we talked about this one in the last example. This is a parabola that goes sideways, okay? By the way, a square root is a function. For part C, for this one, this is not a function, okay? And I'm not too worried whether you know domain and range on this one. You do need to know that x equals y squared though. X equaled y squared is a parabola going up, and we will deal with that one a lot in section 6. So that one, you do need to know that is a function, okay? And we'll talk more about domain and range later. Part D, I'm not too concerned about right now. You do need to know that this means it is shaded, that less than or equal to, so this one would not be a function. And part E, on part E, the key thing is you need to know what's not allowed in the domain on this one. So anytime you have a fraction, you take the bottom and you say x minus 1 cannot equal 0. If I add 1 to both sides, I get x cannot equal 1. That's what I'm wanting you to know. That's the important part to me, is you know where it is undefined. If I plug a 1 back in there on bottom, I get 0 on bottom and it is undefined. Okay, so if I were to write this in interval notation, x can be anything except 1. So I would write negative infinity with a parenthesis, comma 1 with a parenthesis, because it can't equal 1, union 1 with a parenthesis, comma infinity with a parenthesis. Basically that tells me it can equal everything except that 1.